Hello everyone, and welcome to another unit review. And today we are going to be starting to take a look at the Final Fantasy Tactics units. Man, that's kind of difficult to say. Apparently. Anyway, today we're going to start looking with Beowulf. And the reason why I want to start with Beowulf is because, honestly, I think he's one of the coolest units, and I think a lot of people aren't giving him a fair shake because of the status effect thing. So I'm just going to take a look at him first, and well, you are all just going to have to suffer through this review. Anyway, long story short, I gotta say I really like his design. I think his unit really stands out. It looks super cool. His limit burst is pretty damn flashy too. And the other thing that I'm not going to apologize, but I am going to inform, is the fact that all of these reviews for the next little bit are probably going to have considerable amounts of lag. It seems to be a widespread thing with the new patch update. There isn't much that I can do about it, so I'll just apologize. Well, I said I wasn't going to apologize, but let's be nice. Anyway, we're going to take a look at this guy. So first of all, what is his Trust Mastery? Well, his Trust Mastery is a materia, attack plus 40%, HP and MP plus 20%. Pretty strong little attack up. It's not some of the higher attacks we've seen, but since this guy is not really a true dual hand unit, this is okay. This is actually just pretty decent, considering that really he does kind of fall more into a support category. But yeah, the real value of this TMR is what else it gives him, and we'll talk about that later in his kit. Now, his Super TMR is incredibly valuable for him, and I want to bring up one other unit that would be really good to get your hands on. First of all, his Super Trust Mastery is a Greatsword, 168 attack, 127 magic. This guy is a hybrid user, so this Greatsword is great for him. This Greatsword is also fantastic for Beatrix, so if you guys have been looking for a way to make Beatrix really good, her enhancements were great, and this Greatsword would be great on her. So, not just valuable for him, also valuable for any hybrid unit comes down the line that can use Greatswords. So, possibly some good value in the future, we'll see. Now, of course, his limit burst is one of the big things about this guy. Maxed out at a level 30 is a 3,200% single target one-hit hybrid attack that debuffs the enemy for 3 turns of 74% to attack, defense, magic, and spirit. In general, just one of the strongest debuffs in the game, available on his limit burst, which only costs 28 crystals, not bad, and that 74% debuff, great, but the damage is incredibly high. An advantage to hybrid units is that you don't need their stats to be super high, one or the other. You can just put them pretty equal and they will do a massive amount of damage, especially with high percentages on a lot of their attacks. And unfortunately on the training dummy we can't show off one of his best attacks, but I'll get there in a minute. Stat-wise, his base attack is 198, his base magic is 194, pretty close together, good for a hybrid, with an extra 50 points being able to put into both of those and into defense and spirit as well. In general, his stats are incredibly well-rounded, with his defense being the only thing that's not the greatest, but it's still pretty good. The amount of MP this guy can get is really nice. Problem I have with Lid is that sometimes in long fights she can run out of MP because her abilities do cost a lot. This guy having 700 MP pretty easily in my setup is great, and 8,000 HP, not bad for someone who's providing support and damage. Alright, so looking at what I have mine set up with, basically just non-elemental because of the event that is going right now, but you could vary this into different things depending on what element you want. This guy is best built as well, 100% this guy is the best built as a dual wielder. The fact that he has dual casting of his abilities just gives him some flexibility in his kit, but dual wield. So yes, you can see that I have mine set up pretty simply right now to try and keep his attack and magic fairly even. Stat-wise, I still have a ways to go into stats I can put, so he can probably hit about 13 each, which would be pretty damn decent for a hybrid unit. Now, abilities-wise, magic, he does have some spells that help him out, Kiraga and Raise. Okay, nothing super here, nothing really worth mentioning, but I guess it's okay to have those abilities. Now in his kit, here's the thing. Yes, a lot of his abilities do status effects, and the stat effects, I have said, are not valuable, because bosses will never be hit by status effects, or at least most of them won't. So we're not going to focus on that. Instead, we're going to focus on what else his turns do. First of all, he does have an ability that does a 250% magic damage per turn for 3 turns. Nothing really that great, but it is kind of interesting in his kit because it's extended damage over a long time. Who knows, might be useful in some way. He also has 10% chance to dodge physical attacks. Okay, so maybe you could set this guy up with some more dodge pretty easily, and then he would be able to be a debuffer with 100% dodge. Now, that should be valuable. You can argue about how good the status effects will be, especially because they're not AoE, so they're not even good in Arena. But a debuffer that could be status immune, which we'll talk about that in a second, that also could have a high dodge is potentially really good. And high percentages mean that he can still put out a lot of damage, so it's interesting to say the least. He also has ways to buff himself and drain MP and HP. Again, this is something that Lid doesn't have. MP drain just can be valuable in long-term fights, especially when this guy has so much MP. It means it takes him a while to run out, and then he just can drain MP, so problem solved. He gets a nice stat boost also across the board early on in his 5-star kit, and he can debuff for Ice of 75% and Dark for 75%. So his chaining partners also, this kind of increases his possible chaining partners because Dark especially could be really good and gives another option to Holy. He does get extra HP and MP, light resistance, and 5% MP per turn, which given how much MP he has, that's good news. He has a series of debuffing abilities, which basically debuff for defense, spirit, or magic, and also give 20% to that stat to him for 3 turns, so that's kind of interesting. But in his kit, naturally, even only in his 5-star, he has an extra 50% physical and magical damage versus humans. For a hybrid, that stacks up really, really quickly. So killers are always valuable. Forget that this ability also comes with an extra 50% attack. That's nice too, but 50% natural magic killer and that physical killer versus humans, that's really cool. He can debuff defense and spirit of 50% for 3 turns. He also gets an extra 50% magic increase and 50% physical and magical damage versus dragons. So in the long term, this guy could be really, really good versus Bahamut because, well, there's more in his kit. Now, an ability I absolutely love that this guy has, a lot of times one of the problems that I have is, oh shoot, I have to dispel the enemy, but my healer needs to heal. This ability is super cool for that. 60 MP, basically single target dispels buffs and debuffs, and then 3 turn minus 45% to attack, defense, magic, and spirit. So it debuffs the enemy and re-adds debuffs to the enemy. So that's really cool. Removing buffs and debuffs, yeah, of course. Well, only Lid has an incredible, well, very few units in the game have ways to remove just buffs from the enemy and keep debuffs, so this ability being able to full break and debuff the enemy first, or dispel the enemy, is super valuable. Frees up your healer, great, love it. Now he has the ability to debuff the single enemy for 50% for attack and magic for 3 turns, that's great. He also has degrading buffs. Now, the degrading buffs I think are pretty cool. Your opinion may vary. But what this does is on turn 1, is the biggest debuff, then for another 2 turns a smaller debuff, then another 2 turns a smaller debuff. So basically with these two 52 MP abilities, one is attack, so it starts with a 70% attack debuff, then a 60% for 3 turns, then a 50% for 5 turns. So it degrades over time, but still strong at the start. Also, he has an ability to debuff light resistance for 100% for 1 turn, 2 turns 75%, 3 turns 50%. So being able to just on command debuff for light at 100% is really, really good. It's just really good. And from there, his 56 MP ability is a debuff of a degrading style for 1 turn. It's 60% to all stats for 2 turns. It is 50% for 3 turns, it's 40%. So yes, it steps down considerably fast. Then from there, he also has the ability to dual cast, and the dual cast works on a lot of his abilities, so that's great. It gives him a ton of flexibility, even being a dual wield unit, which I now understand that's the strength of having a dual wield unit that can dual cast his abilities. Just gives you a lot of flexibility. Basically, you could dispel the enemy, reapply buffs, and still get a another ability in too. So that's pretty cool. Now we get into really his 7-star kit. Oh, no, not yet. We have 2 abilities. Now, these are his chaining abilities, and they're pretty strong on their own. For 54 MP, you either have basically an ability that gives him a 1-turn extra 50% damage versus humans, and extra 50% magic damage versus humans. So physical and magical extra damage, and it's an 1800% single target 8-hit attack in 6 frames. So this is the ability that changed with CG Reagan family. Very strong ability. It also provides human killers to his attack, so this guy could be a really decent chainer, and it's a hybrid attack too, meaning that it's relying on this guy's strengths. Incredibly powerful potentially. His second ability gives him extra 50% physical and magical damage versus dragons. So this one hits 8 hits at 10 frames and is a hybrid attack. I'm not sure quite who this chains with. If it chains with some of the other 10 hit frames attacks, because it's being dual wield or dual casted, means it would be 16 hits. So it might work in some aspect. I need to definitely try it. Now, for equipping his own TMR, which his own TMR is pretty good for him, gives him an extra 30% to HP and MP, 100% all status effect, except for Charm, Stop, and Berserk, of course, but still, 100% status ailment for a debuffer is great. Means you don't have to worry about it. Just set it, forget it. Also gives him 30% to attack and magic when dual wielding. And again, dual wielding is the best option. And I would recommend Lauren or Lorraine's TMR, because it gives him an extra amount of damage for equipping great swords, or daggers too. So generally works out pretty well. He has 30% extra attack, limit burst fill rate of 100%, which is great because its limit burst is super valuable. Now we get into his cooldown abilities, and this one I absolutely love this ability. This is on available turn 6, 5-turn cooldown, 5400% AoE 12 hit at 12 frames hybrid attack. This is a very, very, very strong attack. 5400% on a chaining ability is very strong. At 12 frames too, you can also find, I believe, some kind of chaining partner. Probably Sephiroth would be really decent chaining partner for this guy, since they will both end up hitting at 12 frames, and they can also do the Reagan family. Basically Sephiroth, probably this guy's best friend. But we'll be testing that ability out, just not on the training dummy. Now his other ability is a 90 MP cooldown. It's available turn 1, 5-turn cooldown. For 1 turn, 74% debuff to all stats. 2 turns, 70%, 3 turns, 60%, and hits with some status effects. Strong debuff you can use turn 1. Really strong. Alum did lie, this is not the strongest debuff in the game, but it is still pretty damn strong. and you have this guy's limit burst to cover, you know, debuffing on the other turn. So this guy is essentially Orin, but a hybrid damage dealer instead of a true dual hander. So different strokes for different folks, I guess. 20% extra defense, 30% to magic and spirit, 50% extra human and dragon killer for physical and magical. So I would say that I really, really like this guy, because in general, hybrid units are just cool to me. I find them more interesting than just the straight damage or true dual hand, which is kind of just the meta, and hey, off-meta things are cool. So again, the dual wielding, or the dual ability, gives him a wide range to a whole bunch of his debuffing ability, which is pretty cool. And any of his attack abilities will just be dual casted, providing that you're dual wielding. So let's do our one against humans. And we'll just check and see. 12 million points of damage is not bad for a guy who is not chaining with anybody. We'll show off this ability next. And as much as I would like to, I'm not going to use anybody else. So this is the one versus Dragon Killer, or this is the one that gives him Dragon Killer. Also strong, but not as necessarily strong. And I do realize that the Human Killer is making a big difference here, also having Diablos. But since I demo a lot of units with this kind of setup, it doesn't feel super terrible. So, or at least disingenuous. Alright, so now we'll chain into Runera and see how much. Whoops, the lag, it makes it a little bit difficult. $54 million. And again, that's really not that bad, considering that, oh, look at that, 6-6. And we'll demo off his limit burst, just to show how cool this thing looks. Again, not maxed out or anything yet, and this unit could still be better. But he can dish out a fair amount of damage on his own while debuffing the enemy, and I think that's a good, valuable combo. Same as Orin. If you got Orin last month, I wouldn't say that you need this unit. If you are looking for a debuffer, though, this is a really powerful debuffer that just can happen to do a lot of damage as well. So let's go into a fight, because I want to be able to show off what this guy. Oops, I resized the screen. Gotta readjust it quickly. And there's a very strong Altima. We'll be looking at her in the next video, also when I get mine leveled up properly. Alright. Pretty sure that nobody in this has any dangerous combos, so we just basically have to last for a couple of turns. You know what? I realize somebody does have a combo. Let's get him out of the party, shall we? Seghart, too strong. Please nerf. But either way, this still should be a pretty accurate assessment to how much damage this guy can do. Let's bring Lid. She seems appropriate to talk about in this video too. But a lot of people are complaining about the fact that his status effects don't do anything, and I think you're kind of focusing on the wrong thing here. I really do. The strength of Beowulf is not in... just hit the review. is not in the status effects. The status effects are just side dressing, really. They're not important here. They probably were more important in the tactics game than they are here. So there's really not that much to talk about in terms of how much damage or not damage this unit can do. The real strength here are his debuffs, which are top shelf 100%. They are interesting because they are the degrading idea, which, you know, means that you can have some powerful options, but also there's a little bit of a drawback to them. But also his hybrid damage is very strong, even if. So, and he has the option of many good chaining partners. So I would say that he is pretty damn strong and pretty damn cool. Alright, so let's test this out. This is actually the first time I'm seeing this ability. Here you can see the lag that is present in this game. So yes, it's just a very, very strong ability. 12 hits at approximately, we'll say about 700,000 a point, and he's not necessarily maxed out yet. Makes him a very, 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 very strong unit. We'll show off his other cooldown ability, which just apparently killed the enemy. I guess he went into a stab. Actually, we haven't shown off Maria. Let's try Maria's limit first. For fun. It's a Gundam! That's a pretty strong limit burst. Alright, so now we're up against this guy. So let's just reload. Make sure everybody's just defending. Because I would like to hit this guy pretty damn hard. And we're under no threat here. But I would say that this guy is very strong, very flexible. I would say that I would even say that he's more flexible. He has more options to use with his dual wielding ability or his dual casting abilities. Orin obviously needs it for his attack, but since this guy is a dual wielder, it's a pretty good option. Or it's just generally good flexibility. Alright, one more turn. And keep in mind, any enemy that is a human or a dragon will be taking a considerable amount more damage. Because before he gets to this turn where he can use this ability, he could give himself a killer, which would be a very, very strong outcome into his damage increase. So yes, I have to say that I quite like Beowulf. I'm super happy to have gotten him. He's a different option towards Lid, and one that can do a lot of damage from hybrids. And I'm always super cool about hybrids. Kurosame a couple of months ago, or was it 1 or 2 months ago? Anyway, Kurosame was a character I really liked. It was 2 months ago. This is a guy I definitely like as well. So I'm going to be reviewing all of the tactics units this time. That includes, of course, Altima, obviously, but also Construct 8 and Riaz 2, because I think they're pretty cool units too. So look forward to that in the future, and I will see you in the next video.